Hello, and welcome to our show, Lead Me Home. I am Mary Beth Maestre. The fourth commandment is, honor your father and your mother. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which I have here before me, I took this little excerpt out of it. So listen to these words. It says, observing the fourth commandment brings its reward. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord gives you. Respecting this commandment provides, along with spiritual fruits, temporal or earthly fruits of peace and prosperity. Conversely, failure to observe this law, brings great harm to communities and to individuals. And we see this today, viewers, in our world, where marriage and family life is not what it once was. We see it on the decline, and we wonder what's going on. Be aware of the evil one. It is said that that is one of the last grasps or footholds of what the devil wants to do, destroy marriage and to destroy family life. So be aware of it. So let me introduce you to my next guest, who totally understands the importance of family and understand God's plan for family. I now introduce you to Miss Maureen Turton.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for being here, Maureen. And Maureen, usually when we start off, I like my guests and my viewers to come to understand more about your past history. So where you were born, parents, brothers, sisters, schools you went to, jobs. So let's get started on your history.
Okay. I was born in Belize City. And my parents were originally from parts of Mexico, mainly Cozumel. And they migrated here after the war of caste. And so they brought not only themselves, but the whole family. You know, so my grandfather was very interested that his other children join him. So when he moved, he came to Belize, and so here I am, you know,
and did they settle right away in Belize or Corozal, Orange Walk?
No, they settled in Belize City.
Okay, so they came straight
They came straight to Belize City.
Because so many settled in Corozal and Orange Walk, and that's where we have that history.
That's right, that's right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so, and brothers, sisters?
Okay, my father, Mario Aguilar, and my mom, Irma Aguilar, ni Bautista. He had 7 of us, and so I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers, 1 deceased.
Okay, so already big family.
Big family. Big family.
And what was your Catholic faith like?
Well, the Catholic faith, actually, they ran away because they wanted their religious freedom. Okay. And so they brought with them this culture of religion, family. And so it was very important for them to establish that same foundation here, for the family. Sure. And so they came, and as I said, very, very religious. And my grandmother was especially the one that I think we looked up to. Of course, she had her altar and, you know, her saints. And she always said that, you know, Satan couldn't put his feet there because, you know, she has all the armor there, you know.
Her army.
Yes, her army. And so with that, this made us feel very secure, very good, because I think what they were trying to tell us is that you cannot rely on anyone except God. And so the novenas, we always know what feast day it was, and the candles were lit, and we were urged to pray. Yeah, okay. And so as I continued going to St. Ignatius School, my mother was very devoted to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Okay. And so she made sure that as I turned 7 years old, that I did go to St. Ignatius every Tuesday to do my perpetual help novena.
Okay.
And she dressed me in blue whenever I was going there because she says, that's the color you should be wearing right now. And so I remember St. Ignatius as that vibrant, church and community, because we used to have priests that were so involved and nuns that were so involved. And they used to make sure that we were not only taken care of, academically, but also that inspiration of having God in you, and that is going to be your strength, not only now, but for the future. And so when I look back at that upbringing that St. Ignatius really gave me with Sister Anthony, and the priests that were there, Father Castillo too, and not only that, but I remember that the church was an extension of your home. Yes. So besides my home being the domestic church, we had, that other crutch to hold on to for everything. And so that really gave us our strength. And I remember many times for confession on Saturdays, you had to put that was a priority to make sure that you go to confession Saturday afternoons. And the lines were extremely long. So you had to wait,
long lines.
Long lines.
I remember
and
that
so,
in my days.
Yes. And so, I'm always proud to say of the Catholic education that I have gotten here in Belize. And we were fortunate to have the Jesuit priests at that time, Palatine nuns, and the nuns of Mercy, the Sisters of Mercy. And so they actually laid the foundation, and gave us the pillars that we are right now. Because in my generation now, you and I, we are the pillars that are holding up the Catholic Church. Yes. And we want to pass on this torch. So whatever we can pass on to the younger community to say, you are next in line, I'd be happy to do that.
To do that. I like you brought up the name of Sister Anthony. Now, I didn't go to St. Ignatius, my older brothers did, but we certainly knew of Sister Anthony.
That's right.
And she was a principal, but like you said, it wasn't only academics. She was interested in your personal life.
She was interested. She made sure that, your little shoes need cleaning. She will tell you. And then she also made sure that some of us that didn't have the means of having a good breakfast at home, the school used to facilitate early mornings cups of milk, to make sure that at least you get something, that is nourishable, So, yes, they took care of your spiritual life, and that is the important part that I think, because just like how we need our parents to provide the resources for us, we also need the clergy and the religious people to also feed us our spirituality.
And what's nice to you said is not only, I love what you said, the church was an extension of your home. So, and if you were blessed to have, like you did, you go learn all these things at school, and of course they taught you going to Mass and everything, but you went home to parents who continued it. Well, they started it, but in some cases, parents aren't doing this in the home, and they're depending on the school to do it.
That's right.
And nowadays, our school is not keeping up with that role to provide this wonderful continuation of our church and our Catholic faith. So if you're not getting it from the school today, and you go home and you're not getting it in the family either,
so that means that there's a vacuum there that has to be filled.
Huge vacuum. And I know our churches, you're going to share some things a little later, and our churches are trying, and our schools in their best way. But I think a little bit more can still be done.
Sure.
You even said, and I love what you said about, it took you to on Tuesdays to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. I bet you were consecrated. The fact that you said you wore blue, you were consecrated, because I remember wearing blue as well, and I had been, all of us, brothers and sisters, my brothers wore blue as well, because we had also been consecrated to our Blessed Virgin. And you speak about your mother always having a rosary, yeah?
Oh, yes, my mother, my grandmother always lived with us because her husband passed away, and so She lived with my mom, and they would have their apron, but I mean, they have their lethal weapon in their apron pocket, and you know, they were always there with it. And so I grew up with, you know, those sort of things as my ammunition, you know, because they laid that groundwork.
That foundation.
And you know, right. And so they live with their beads, you know, in their hands.
Now, you say also on Sundays, the family would get together, and your grandfather was instrumental in bringing the whole family.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
My grandfather, his priority was always, his focus was on the family. And he thought that whatever was happening in the family, he needs to know, and that he was there as a counselor, so that whatever we were going through, we know that we had someone that we can depend on, that we can go to. And then he usually used to end off, he says, take it in prayer.
Oh, lovely.
You know, and so he would gather all his other children and who had their children, so my cousins and everybody, and they would meet on Sunday afternoon. And on that Sunday afternoon, my grandfather had his little radio, and it was one of these short waves, you know, but he was in tune with everything that was going on in the world. And so I'm talking about the 1950s.
Sure.
And so he would be current with what's going on, and he would want to share that. And then he would get a dialogue going on, and then I used to be very keen in listening to what they're saying.
This was like the BBC,
yes,
and other, other stations.
The American stations also. And so, you know, I think that, you know, I learned a lot. And up until today, I'm still listening to Vatican Radio because
that's something that was ingrained in you.
Yes, something ingrained there, you know. So, as I said, they laid the blocks, you know. And each time, as my life progressed, I think I met each little step in that block, you know. So,
okay, so then you move on from St. Ignatius and you go on to
Pallotti High School.
All right, what was that like, Pallotti High School?
Pallotti High School. That's my alma mater, and those were the best days of my life. And I always remember the German nuns, Sister Henrietta, who taught us, you know, sewing, home economics, Sister Lydia, with cooking. We had Sister Therese and Sister Rosella. And with Sister Rosella, we had to know how to sit up straight, and she wanted us to have a good diction and what have you. And so she would say, okay, let's go with those tunes. Ha, 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 ha. And we have to keep on just taking it higher and higher. And of course, Sister Therese with music. And Sister Leonarda, actually with drama, you know. So I could say all in all, it was another part of my life that laid the foundation how to be a young woman. And so with the teaching, we used to smock little baby dresses, you know, do tea courses, and then know how to make nice scones and biscuits and what have you. So they were very good, very instrumental in us taking our examinations in that home economics class from the GCE in London, England.
I didn't go to Pallotti, but I remember every fair you went to, all those things were on sale.
Right.
You know, all the things that were baked.
Right.
You know, breads and muffins and different things.
Yes.
And like you said, the sewing. They had a section that you could buy things.
Right. So all those things, you know, make who you are, because you know, even if you're a woman and you can afford a maid, I mean, you have to know if the maid is doing what she's supposed to do.
Okay, but then you also said now, you were quite bright in Pallotti, I guess obviously in St. Ignatius. So before you graduate, 2 months prior to graduation, you were sent out to teach.
Yes.
I'd never heard of this.
I was approached by Father Short, and Father Short actually asked two of us, myself and Antoinette Espat, and said, would you all like to teach? So, oh yes, I said, it's something that, you know, I think I would like. And so he told me, he said, well, he says, I've already spoken to Father Donovan at St. Joseph's. And so just go to him and tell him that, you're the person that he spoke about. And so I went, and then sure enough, Father Donovan let me fill in the 2 to 3 months that were left before graduation. And so I started there, and I enjoyed it because I always felt like, this is what I want. This is the career that I would like. And so I enjoyed that opportunity. And up until today, my heart is still in teaching.
In teaching, one form or the other.
Yes, one before the other.
That's me, I was a teacher as well.
And then up until last year, I facilitated 26 teachers at Holy Redeemer with Vatican II. So the teaching is still in me.
Has stayed with you. Mm-hmm. But so then after the 3 months, you go ahead and you graduate.
Yes.
So you graduate from high school.
Right,
okay.
right.
And then after graduation, you go back?
And then, yes, I was asked if I would like to continue the next school year. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure, I would like to. And so Father said, but he says, I would like you to go to the Belize Teachers College.
Okay.
And so that's when, I went to the Belize Teachers College and did the courses there. As a matter of fact, Father Leslie was my classmate.
Oh, okay. So you and Father Leslie.
Father Leslie, yes. So we were classmates there, and I always remember, another nice experience. Great teachers, great facilitators that really put us on track.
Okay. And then you, after that, you're going to continue teaching at St.
I went back, yes, to St. Joseph. Mm-hmm, I went back.
And then a year or two, but what was it? That's at St. Catherine's?
And then after, I did 4 years at St. Joseph, and then an opportunity came up for me to teach at St. Catherine's, and yes, I went there, and I taught at St. Catherine's also.
Okay, we'll stop there, and we'll take a break, and then we'll continue on this story of yours. Everyone has their own story, yeah? Mm-hmm. But we see, viewers, how teaching is going to play a part in her life. It's going to come, it's going to go, but it will always be there. Mm-hmm. So we'll be right back, viewers, to continue on Maureen's story.
What would you say is now the #1 cause of death in the African American community?
Heart disease,
HIV/AIDS,
diabetes, cancer,
gang violence.
What if I told you the real answer was abortion?
Since 1973, legalized abortion has killed more Black Americans than AIDS, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and violent crimes combined. Learn more at blackdignity.org.
Hello and welcome back. We'll continue on Maureen's story now, and we'll see how this family life continues with her. It's been with her all along, starting with that grandfather that came in from Cozumel and kept between him and his wife, her grandmother, and her parents. Her faith is really strong, and now she's going to start passing it on to another generation. So let's continue on her story and see how we get to that point. Okay, so Maureen, you're finished with Pallotti now and you're teaching, and you decide it's time to go abroad.
That's right. And that's when I went to New York. Mm-hmm. I stayed with my cousin, who's Nilda Reyes. Okay. She's married to Manuel Reyes, and he is brother to Sister Andretta, from Sisters of Mercy. So again, I stayed in that home, and that for her, the church was just in her backyard. And so again, it's ingrained all over. And so after reaching New York, I pursued a course in liberal arts at St. Joseph College, and then also worked part-time. Mm-hmm. And I was offered a job at an attorney's office, and it is there that my life took a turning point, because I had wanted to probably, migrate to the United States and probably start my life there. However, they say that bad things happen to good people, but it's for a purpose. And I don't look at it today. I can reflect and say, well, it wasn't something bad that really happened. But at the time, it was very traumatic. And so we were there. There were 3 secretaries. And this guy, 2 guys actually came in. And so we thought that they needed some sort of, service. But they came in as they just, slammed the door behind them, and they said, this is a holdup. And so there it was, something, well, I seem to have moved a little to my right out of the other 2 secretaries, and he looked at me, and then he took that gun and pointed at my temple. And he says, don't you dare move. And so I felt like I just froze in that spot. And then he says, come on, let's go. And he locked us up in the bathroom. Before locking us up, though, he stripped us of everything we had, whatever jewelry, our wallets, our purse, whatever he could have taken. And so we waited inside that bathroom, and I was already crying because to me, I said, well, what is next, And so the lead secretary, she said, don't worry, she says, because under my desk, I have a button that I can touch to the nearest precinct, and the cops will be here in a little while. And so I felt good about that, only to find out later on that connection was not to the nearest precinct, but to one 3 or 4 miles away. And so they took very long in reaching there. And at the same time, the boss came in before the cops. And so he heard us banging on the door. And then he said, what's the matter?
As soon as the gunmen were finished, they left.
They left. They left.
So they just left you all in the back,
and so they left us, just locked up in there. We were scared of moving.
Okay, sure.
And so he came and we explained to him what happened and like that. Well, actually, I didn't wait for a response from him nor anything. My brother was working at Fawcett Furniture. His name is Israel. And he was there, I looked towards him as my little bodyguard, I should say. And he said, I phoned him and I said, what happened? I said, we got held up. And I was crying and crying. And so he came right away and he says, come, let us go. And so he took me to his office place. And it's from his office that I called my dad and said, this is what is happening and like that. At the time, he didn't kind of said what he was going to do, but later on that evening, he did make a call and he said, you know what? Your plane ticket will be there tomorrow. Wow. You just come back home. And so this is how I came back to Belize.
Back to Belize again. All right. So even if that dream of wanting to stay there, that was put on hold for a while. That was put on hold for a while. Because you just wanted to get out at that time. Right.
And
that is a traumatic experience.
Yes, it sure
I can
was.
imagine.
I remember many nights having nightmares on that,
sure.
And I was very scared.
Okay, so you're going to come back to Belize, and you're looking for a job now.
Oh yes, so I'm coming back, and because I was in the legal field already, I just felt attracted to that field also, and so I was told by a friend of mine that there was an attorney who was looking for a secretary, and that I should apply for the job, and so I said, oh yes, and she told me, well, who is that person? He said, his name is Mansell Turton. And I said, it rang a bell. But then I said, okay, I think I know who it is. And so, sure enough, I went there.
For your interview?
For my interview. And he said, my dad is working on my office right now. And so, but it will be finished within a month or so. He says, but I'll keep in touch with you, And so that's how that happened, that I got attracted to the legal field, and so now looking for a job in that area.
In that area. But you said you had recognized him because he had been in education, and he was what you call it?
Examiner.
Examiner.
Yes, yes. When I was sitting the General Certificate of Education, because at that time we did GCEs from London, England. And so he was the one that gave me my oral Spanish. And I remember him bringing this picture. It's a picture that he had there of some cows, eating the green grass and the scenery. So I had to say in Spanish what I was seeing on that picture and everything. So that's when I first met Mr. Turton. And thereafter, I met him a second time. And that was when I was pursuing my my teacher's
the practical
teacher's exam. And so again, he was going to give me the practical. One of my friends who was a teacher also, Sonia Tillett, she's the one that was assigned along with me to Nazarene Primary School. And so Sonia and I went there, and we were a little bit scared because we are used to our Catholic schools where, we have a certain structure. And so here we were, and we saw these kids climbing all over the table and everything. And I go, oh, Sonia, how will we get these kids to just calm down? So because I said, he will be looking at all this, how we control our class, if it's discipline, if it's structured. So I told her, I says, well, let's try something. Just go and be with the kids and tell them, introduce ourselves and see. And they all crowded around us, and yes, we were able to calm them down. So there was Mr. Turton sitting in the back, and he was observing.
So he's observing how you handle a class.
Yes, because, we had to have our teacher's aid, whether it's a graph or a picture, whatever we were using for that particular subject that we were teaching. And so, lo and behold, he was the examiner. And so when I finished, I went to Sonia and I said, Sonia, how did I do? And she says, oh, girl, she says, you did fantastic. He says, but that examiner was only looking at you. He was not even listening to what you were saying. Oh, no, I said, you're trying to make me feel good. But that was the second time that I met Mensa. And then the third time when I went for an interview.
For your interview.
Yes.
And of course, you are going to get the job.
Yes.
And how many years later, you still have the job?
Well, yes,
You still kept that job.
Yes, I still yes.
Okay, but once again, another pivotal point. You're working there, and what's going to happen within a year or so? Once you're working with him, with Mansell Turton, you're going to be courting starts, or what's
yes,
going to happen?
Actually, it was after 1 year that we had a courtship. And I found Mr. Turton a very attractive man in the sense that he was, I liked the way he delivered himself. He was so soft-spoken. His temperament was so calm, and then he was very respectful. I must say that. And then today...
Can't be said, the same cannot be said today.
That's true. And then so today, my husband still maintains that same attitude. I love him to death, and I am more in love with him than I was during that time.
Back then.
And up until today, when I'm talking to him and my sons, they're listening to me. They're saying, are you all still courting?
That's beautiful. You hear that? Back to the plan of marriage and family.
That's right.
And we do not let the evil one come in and break that up.
That's right.
How many kids? What
I have 3 children. They're all boys.
Okay, all boys.
Maria, Omar, and Christopher.
Okay, so you said, I think, Maria and Omar are born here, but then what's going to happen? Because there are lots of pivotal points in your life.
Yes, that's true.
You all family have...
That's true. At that time, my whole family had migrated for quite some time. And actually, I was the only one here. From my brothers and sisters. Yes. So there was something missing in my life. It's true that I had extended family, but it's not like, my core family.
Yes.
And so I miss the gatherings, I miss everything. So I began urging my husband. I said, let's make a trip to Texas and see. And so that's where we ended, and we went there. And I love San Antonio.
Okay.
And so I found that I said, this is somewhere that I think I'd like to really settle down.
Okay, and you get a job there?
Yes. And so when I went there, of course, my husband needed to pass an exam there because, American law is based on their English law. And so he had already passed his exam in London, England. So he studied at Gray's Inn. And so to go to Texas, gas and oil were, the ones that he would really have to emphasize on. And so he did, and he took the Barbary course, and he then got his, his law degree there in San Antonio, in San Antonio, Texas. And after my husband got his license to practice there, he went to work with a group of attorneys, which was a law firm, and it's as Mayo, Madelinsky, and Sims. And so when he started working there, and I was at home at that time, trying to settle down, I got pregnant. And so that's where my third child, But I had mom and I had my grandmother there, so they were always
family once again.
And so I was able to leave my young baby, with my mother. And so in 3 months' time, I went ahead and then I began studying for my paralegal.
Okay.
And
you passed that?
Yes, I went to to University of San Antonio, and that's where I took my paralegal, and so I was able. So after getting my paralegal certificate, I went to work for Rogers and Jeremiah Handy, and that's where my life again took another turn.
Okay.
Another turn.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about that, another huge turning point.
Yes, another huge turning point because just migrating and settling down, my husband working, with other attorneys, and I too working, but we were gaining experience and everything. And so it happened that at this law firm that I worked, they had several floors. And so at one point, one of the attorneys told me that I needed to go to the library, which was just one floor upstairs. And so I went, and he wanted a book. I had to do research on Westlaw, and so find precedents for him of which case he's going to do. So I had to go get that book up in the library. And so when I went to the upstairs, I seem to have opened the wrong door because there were two doors facing me. And instead of using the left door, which goes to the library, I just happened to open the right door. And so that, again, is another experience that really, turned my life around, my way of thinking and everything. Because as I opened that door, I got shocked. Because right to my left side, there was this huge barrel on the left. And inside that huge garbage bags, there were parts of little children, So they were dismembered. They were dismembered. And so when I did like this and I saw the little arms and I said, I just ran downstairs without the book, and he saw me looking so pale, and he says, "What's the matter?" So I said, "I had a horrible experience just now. Could you just give me some time?" And I went to the bathroom and I just began crying, and I said, "Oh no, what is this?" And so my greatest consolation was to call my husband and tell him what had happened. And so that gave me a little bit of comfort, and he says, "I'm coming over to pick you up." And so that's when my husband came and picked me up. And sure enough, after that, another turning point, it made my husband said, he says, I'm going to open my own law practice, he says, and then you will be my secretary. And so that's how he opened it, and then I became his secretary.
So always, you notice every bad turns into a good somewhere.
Yes.
Because we're winding down once again. So this was, you didn't even know, part of that floor was an abortion clinic.
That was an abortion clinic.
That's what it was, an abortion clinic. And you working on that as a legal secretary had no idea, but your boss was part of it.
Yes.
You just didn't know that.
I didn't know
at that time. So you have to have first-hand experience.
Right.
And you see cases of this on TV, viewers, you hear about it, but she experienced it first-hand, seeing the body parts in a barrel just thrown.
Yes.
These are lives. These are souls that were put in there. Babies with a soul.
That's right.
Just thrown.
That's right.
So that's another very, very traumatic experience.
Yes.
Okay, one after the other. We'll stop there now, viewers. But I think we understand where prayer was a big part in her life too. But both incidences, I'm sure, once again, you had family praying for you, a mother praying for you.
That's
just
right.
for the experience in New York, with the gunman gun to your head. You had a praying mother, praying family.
That's
you
right.
don't know what you're praying for, but it's when it happens, you realize where prayer was so important.
Sure.
Okay, we'll continue when we come back.
What would you say is now the #1 cause of death in the African American community?
Heart disease.
HIV/AIDS.
Diabetes, cancer.
Gang violence.
What if I told you the real answer was abortion?
Since 1973, legalized abortion has killed more Black Americans than AIDS, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and violent crimes combined. Learn more at blackdignity.org.
We're back, viewers, and so we'll continue on Maureen's story now. So remember, this is a second traumatic experience Maureen has had. Can you imagine that? Coming across a barrel of baby parts. So, but once again, good can always come out of bad. So that encourages her husband to open up his own firm, and of course, Maureen is going to be his legal secretary, something she's been doing all along. But also, she's raising her children. So tell us now, you have 3 boys, you had them in school. What age were you?
I have 3 boys, and so I think a part that I have to mention is that my husband, while he was studying for that Barbary, he was also a teacher in San Antonio. And so my first child, who is Mario, went along with him to school every day.
Oh, lovely.
And so that was a Catholic school that he taught. And so my father really embedded in us that, that school should be Catholic. And so I made it a point that no matter what the cost, I will have my children going to all phases of their scholastic life Catholic. And so we invested quite a bit of money.
And it is a big investment.
It is a big expense. And so my 3 children went to St. Pius X school, and so that was their primary education. And then they went to a boys' school, Central Catholic. And thereafter, Mario, the first one, went to St. Mary's University. He got his master's from there. And then my other son, Chris, he went to DePaul University. And so that's where he got his bachelor's degree. And then my middle child, who is Omar has a disability. And so he too did go to college. I made sure that, that he went, yes,
at the others.
That he, yes. So
and you became part. You were involved in their school life.
I was very involved in at St. Pius X, when they were having their fairs, I used to go and get burgers from McDonald's. They offered us the patties and everything, fundraising, And then what I enjoyed most was to take these children into the chapel for adoration.
Yes.
And then just for them, just to relax them, putting their hands on their knees, closing their eyes, and telling them to breathe in the name Jesus and out. And so I did that for the whole school, taking them by different grades. Now, this was done an hour prior to me going to my work at my husband's office. Okay. But because I work with him, there was flexibility.
Sure.
And so I was able to contribute something there, both in their primary school years and in their high school years. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity, that I was part of their growing up in the faith.
But you also did something else. You said after being traumatized, you went and prayed in front of the abortion clinic.
Yes, definitely. I joined a group, and in front of that same building, I stood with placards.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And
so you did something about it.
I did something about that. And so in front of that same building, I made it a point to walk up and down. We having policemen coming to tell us, don't walk there, don't, but still, we were right there, with our placards, to end abortion.
So you did something about it.
Yes.
Your own personal
contribution.
That's right. Contribution. That's amazing.
And I still do it when I travel, and I go back and they ask me, and so I still go and I'm still demonstrating.
Still part of that. Okay, so your kids growing up, you said family members are passing away, your parents die, your husband's family as well, his father passes away as well.
Right.
Your boys are off to college, and you make yet another decision that it's time to return to Belize.
Yes. And I always said that, when my youngest child reaches college years, that I will, come back home, because home, no matter where it is, home is home. Okay. And Belize was my home.
For both of you.
Right. And so I just felt that I had a journey to do, and I did it. And that now is the time for me to come back home. And so that's when we decided to come, and then my husband opened his law practice here again.
And once again, you're his secretary.
Yes, that's right.
And you said you met some friends who encouraged you to come and join the Rosary group. And
yes, because at that time, upon my return, I think it's because the passing away of my grandmother, my mother, and my father-in-law, that there was something missing, and I was sort of confused at that stage and said, well, I don't know if I should stay or if I should go, but I think that I needed that breathing space and that I should come and do some reflection. And so that's what I did, when I came back.
Okay, and this is when it was at that time
it was
that
at
you
that
met
time.
this friend.
So a relative of mine who is, I have two devoted people here that I've really stuck with, and that is Elder Nuva Cervantes. She is actually my mentor from when I was a little girl. She was part of my family. And as I said, she was a teacher and then a principal. And so I decided that that's when I said, I'd like to be like her. I want to be a teacher. And I think I forgot to mention to you the early part where I was talking why I was attracted to teaching. From the tender years, like maybe 8 or 9 years old, the veranda used to have pickets. Yes. And I used to go with my book and my little stick and my ruler, and each picket had a name, and that was the name of a child. And so I was teaching to them, like,
you're teaching
doing
to them,
my practical teaching, and it was, there with my...
It was in you.
And like that. And
it
then
was in you.
Petita, who is Petronilla Cervantes, she has a prayer group. Her prayer group has been going for over 20 years now. And so at that time when I came back, I wasn't a happy person because of the loss that I had suffered. Yeah. And so she said, Maureen, she says, we have our Rosary group, and if you would like to join, you're more than welcome. And so I started with that group. And like 5 years, actually, I think I was just praying the Rosary, and we do it in the months of May and October, and we visit 31 homes each time.
From home to home, every night.
From home to home.
The rosary is said in a different home.
We said in a different home. And so that sort of started, back, my feeling of prayer life and everything by joining that group. And after I did that, then we had the Christ Renew His Parish. And so when I did it, Nicole was the director and I was the spiritual director. For that time period. And I was very moved with that Christ Renew His Parish. I thank Mr. Will for having done such a great job of bringing that ministry here, because today I can reflect and look back that many of our leaders right now came from that Christ Renew His Parish. Because after you finished that and you had to do your discernment, you were looking to see what ministry you can fit in. And so for me that was another important part, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and I would also say other people, if you invited, just go ahead and attend this, because it's an eye-opener.
Yes, viewers, I've mentioned this before. Christ Renews His Parish, and I tell you, it takes place at different, it's still going strong, at different parishes. So if you're interested, get in touch with the parish and see which parish is hosting it and when that will take place. But I also asked Maureen for a verse, and a Bible verse, and she gave me the one, Matthew 18, verse 19 to 20, and it's called The Power of United Prayer. And it says, "Again I tell you, if two of you join your voices on earth to pray for anything whatever, it shall be granted you by my Father in heaven. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in their midst." Remember this, viewers. Not that God doesn't listen to single prayer. He does, believe me. But it's so much more powerful when 2 and 3 are gathered. So that's exactly this in your rosary prayer, in all the novenas that you said, Lady of Guadalupe and Esquipulas. So all of that's been chirp, that's all coming together, 2 or 3 gathering for prayer and whatever else takes place there.
Of course.
But let's move forward quickly now. And so you meet up with Sister Maggie, and you're going to take the Limex course.
I was encouraged to take the Limex program, and so Sister Maggie encouraged me a lot to do that. And so I pursued that for 4 years, and then of course, got my certificate from Loyola University. And that, again, was, another inspirational thing in my life, because I've read about my religion, some of the famous theologians today, how they're thinking, and what is most important for us as Catholics today. So that reinforced everything that I have been, going along in different programs. And so with Sister Maggie, then I did the first liturgical convention, which was done in 2012 at St. John's. And the theme was embracing your word, enhancing your worship, envisioning your glory. And so this was the brainchild of Father Leslie. And so with this, I will never forget, we had 175 lay ministers attending this conference, and it was an eye-opener, and it set the pace for other conventions and institutes that we will follow. But this was the one because it hasn't been held in many years. And so when Father Leslie decided to do this and like this, so I started working with Sister Maggie, and I was the assistant director and assistant coordinator of ministries. And I enjoyed that, being with her. And she would always call me, tweeting, texting. She said, "Let's shake the bushes." And I said, "Here I am." I said, "Let's go together," And so, she recently left, and so
let's continue, because we have quite a few. So let's go through the next one.
And then after that one in 2012, we did the diocesan conference. And so this too was an eye opener, because it was a mission and ministry of our parish. And so lay ministers were asked to take workshops in whatever they were involved in. whether some of them were giving communion and, an important little aspects as to how a lay minister should give communion, because many times the workshop will give them more than just the preparation of what you need to have at table or what have you. But experience, especially in hospitals, where if the person cannot open your mouth, you do not give them, because then our Lord's, the communion is found, the host is found under pillars and different, and so, so these workshops reinforce your ministry on whether it's the sacraments or, or what have you. So that was done in 2013. And then in 2014, Sister Barbara asked me to help with her National Catholic Teachers Convention. And so again, yes, we went down to Toledo to do this. And again, I assisted her with this, and that was a moving experience also. Because first
this is
of all,
teachers only in that area, or all teachers went down to PJ?
All teachers
from all
went,
the,
yes, and it was near to 1,000.
Oh, wow.
So there were a lot of teachers there, in Punta Gorda. And then Punta Gorda is such a beautiful place also.
Yes.
I always felt like a tiny little ants looking up at the mountains, and I said, oh Lord, I can feel you. I can feel you, I can see you, So again, another rich experience there. Then after 2014, 15, 16, I started working and editing on the book Guidelines for the Liturgy of the Word.
Okay, yes,
And
I've heard about this.
This took me like a year and a half to put together everything, but it was worth the wait, because in it gives guidelines for any lay ministers, because we have to remember that in Belize there's a tremendous shortage of priests. Therefore, lay ministers, teachers can go into villages, open the church, and will be able to give, a liturgical
which is what we call
service.
Communion service.
Communion service. Okay? So they will be able, they're guided as to how their performance should be. And my beloved husband, very, very versed in, he has his diploma in Spanish also. And so he is very well versed. And so he did the Spanish version,
the translation,
which is Guía para la Liturgia de la Palabra. And so
my goodness.
he did that. And then we went all over. We went to all the districts and all the villages here, from Maskell, Ladyville, Rancho Dolores. And it also comes with a DVD. And very inspirational also, because we have different speakers telling you how to be a lector, how to prepare. And so it's a very awesome experience. And then so my last one that I did October 21st here in 2017 was the Institute again, which again was a very, very nice day, because it opened up lots. I keep on learning. So,
of course, every time, yes.
Keep on learning and everything. And so it was a very, very interesting day. And then come April of 2018, we're already working on our next workshop. We will be on sacristans and the sacrament of baptism and confirmation.
Oh, that should be an amazing
very, very important.
So viewers, you can see, besides being this legal secretary, like she said, the teaching profession never left her. That's always been ingrained in her. So here you see that in what has been put forth here, and her going out to teach it and explain it and organize it as well. So if for those of you who say the church doesn't do anything, please look here. The church does a lot. It does a lot for its lay ministers, especially when, like she just said, the shortage of priests. So for the lay ministers to go out and to share the word, and to share the word properly. Properly is the key word because anyone can get up and say any word.
Right, and we have to remember here in Belize, we may not have the financial resources like other churches elsewhere. However, we have the greatest resource, which is the human resource of our lay people. And we have teachers with experience that can pass on this faith, taking on different roles and what have you. But our reach, we are rich in that. We are very rich when it comes to our human resource here. So
Beautiful. Look at all Maureen has been involved in, and she doesn't stop. So I don't even need to ask you, what is your prayer life today? It just doesn't stop either, huh? Your regular, your daily prayer life.
My prayer life is, I have always led a prayer life because I always believe that you can't do anything
Without,
And so when I'm preparing for these workshops or working on something, I make sure that I pray like 3 months prior to when the date, because asking our Lord, to send His Holy Spirit and to guide you so that whatever you're doing or putting together, that it's going to be the best also.
As well.
So that is very important. So prayer life is very important to me. And I literally do my liturgy of the hours. And so in this prayer, I always remember to, this is a short version of the liturgy of the prayer. And then there is a morning prayer, which is the gospel canticle to Luke 1, 6-8, 7. It says, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel. He has come to His people and set them free."
We'll use it as your closing prayer then. Shall we do that rather than the Magnificat?
Okay.
All right, so we'll let you go, because we've come to the end now, viewers. So we'll use this canticle, because this is one of the prayers Maureen says. We've been doing it at Divine Mercy on Saturdays, Liturgy of the Hours. This is what the priests and the nuns and deacons say every day, the Liturgy of the Hours. So let us close with this prayer, which is the canticle. Would you go ahead and share it?
So this would be the evening prayer.
Okay.
But my morning prayer would be...
Let's go with the morning one.
Okay. The morning one is so beautiful, and I chant this especially early in the morning where I can hear the birds and everything is so quiet. And it says, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel. He has come to His people and set them free. He has raised up for us a mighty Savior, born of the house of His servant David. Through His holy prophets He promised of old that He would save us from our enemies, from the hands of all who hate us. He promised to show mercy to our fathers and to remember His holy covenant. This was the oath He swore to our father Abraham, to set us free from the hands of our enemies, free to worship Him without fear, holy and righteous in His sight all the days of our life. You, my child, shall be called the prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare His way, to give His people knowledge of salvation by the forgiveness of their sins. In the tender compassion of our God, the dawn from on high shall break upon us, to shine us on those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death, and to guide our feet into the way of peace."
Amen.
Such a beautiful. And then next week I have my prayer for vocations, which I think as Catholics here in Belize, we need to remember to pray. How can we get priests? We need to pray. He's not going to give us because we haven't asked. And so we need to ask. And so prayers for vocations is so important.
So important. Okay, Maureen, we've come to the end of the show. And we thank you so much for bringing all this wealth of information that you brought with you in your past and certainly up into your present.
Sure.
We continue to ask blessings on Maureen and her family, and for us and our own family. I opened up with talking about the importance of family. And family, remember, is not just limited to our intimate mother, father, brother, sister. Family can extend out to everyone. A family at work, a family at church, a family in whatever job you're doing. So your job is to go out and evangelize to your family, whoever that family is. Not forgetting that where 2 and 3 are gathered, God promises to be there with you. So viewers, thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for taking in Maureen's story. As we can see, she certainly has been all along been part of being led back home. It is still home being the church, or home if you want to look at it as our heavenly home. So we thank Maureen for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, and I enjoyed having you, Maureen. Again, I'd also like to thank you, viewers, for being tuned in. And again, once again, remember this show repeats it's a Thursday, 8 o'clock, and repeats again at 10 p.m. Fridays, 6:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. and on Saturdays at 5 p.m. So remember, if anyone has missed it, they can always catch it at a later date. Thank you also to our cameraman, Mark Lewis. And again, I always thank my friend Tom Peterson. I have never met him. I've spoken to him by phone, who allows us to play his evangelicals, the commercials that you see on this show. So viewers, we thank you, and we'll see you next time. Remember, God loves you.